There's something about Tisha Scott that always gets people talking. Whether it's her comments, her behavior on the show, or the way she responds to criticism, fans never seem to stop analyzing her moves. Over the years, Love and Marriage, Huntsville viewers have formed strong opinions about every cast member, but when it comes to Tisha, the conversation often circles back to one main topic: accountability. Many people feel that Tisha never really owns her actions, never truly admits when she's wrong, and often shifts blame or finds ways to justify her choices. That pattern, combined with her public image and personality, has earned her a reputation that she can't seem to shake off, no matter how many seasons come and go. In recent days, Tisha's name has once again been dragged through the online conversation, with fans calling her out for what they see as another example of her avoiding accountability. The phrase "copy and paste queen" started circulating on social media, and people are using it to criticize her personality and actions. According to some viewers, Tisha seems to model herself after others, instead of embracing her individuality. Many have pointed out moments where she allegedly mimics certain behaviors or storylines from other cast members, especially Melody Sherry, her longtime rival and the show's standout figure. For some fans, this copy and paste label isn't just about her actions, but about the image she tries to portray on and off the show. The phrase itself might sound playful, but underneath it lies a serious critique. Viewers have accused Tisha of lacking originality, not only in her business ventures but also in her approach to handling public situations. Whenever she faces backlash, people notice a familiar pattern: a soft denial, followed by emotional responses, and then a quick shift to deflecting or playing victim. While some fans feel sympathy for her, believing she's simply misunderstood or under too much pressure, others argue that Tisha has had enough chances to grow and show real accountability. At this point, they say, she should know better. What really fuels this fire is Tisha's ongoing dynamic with Melody. The tension between the two women has been one of the central storylines since the very beginning of Love and Marriage, Huntsville. They started as friends, but that friendship fell apart as the seasons progressed, and since then, the relationship has become one of rivalry, mistrust, and subtle competition. Viewers can't help but compare their personalities, their business approaches, and their overall presentation. While Melody has built a strong following based on her confidence, independence, and ability to move forward despite challenges, Tisha's image remains tied to emotional reactions, dependency, and a perceived need for validation. That difference in how they handle pressure is one of the main reasons fans often side with Melody in public discussions. One thing that has always followed Tisha is the claim that she struggles with self-awareness. Many fans feel she's too focused on maintaining a certain image, rather than taking the time to reflect on her behavior. For instance, when someone calls her out or challenges her on something, instead of calmly addressing it or acknowledging the issue, Tisha often becomes defensive. This reaction can make her seem more interested in protecting her ego than in learning from her mistakes. It's this defensiveness that often gets her dragged online, because people can see through it. In the world of reality television, where transparency and relatability can make or break your image, defensiveness can be the one thing that turns viewers against you. Tisha's marriage to Marceau Scott also plays a major role in how fans perceive her. Their relationship has always been complicated, to say the least. Marceau's confident, sometimes dismissive attitude often clashes with Tisha's emotional side. Some fans think Marceau belittles her and doesn't take her seriously as an equal partner, while others argue that Tisha allows it because she depends on him too much. That dependence, according to critics, is another reason why she struggles with accountability. She often hides behind her husband's influence rather than standing firm on her own. Whenever drama unfolds, Tisha tends to position herself as the misunderstood wife who's just trying to protect her family, but rarely as someone who takes ownership of how her words or actions contribute to the situation. Kimmy Scott, who has often tried to play peacemaker on the show, has been vocal in her observations of Tisha's behavior. Kimmy tends to approach issues with logic and calm reasoning, which is why many fans respect her opinions. At times, Kimmy has subtly hinted that Tisha could benefit from more self-reflection. She's tried to explain to Tisha how certain behaviors come across to others, but instead of listening, Tisha sometimes takes those conversations as personal attacks. It's that inability to separate constructive criticism from judgment that keeps her in the same cycle, season after season. Viewers see her in tears, upset about how she's being portrayed, but rarely taking the step to say, "You know what, maybe I was wrong." Of course, accountability isn't an easy thing for anyone, especially when you're living your life on television. Every action is magnified, every word replayed and analyzed, and every misunderstanding turns into a storyline. But after so many seasons, fans expect growth. They expect maturity. And that's where the frustration comes in. Many feel that Tisha hasn't evolved much since the show began. She still gets emotional in the same ways, still reacts instead of responding, and still blames editing or other people for how she comes across. While other cast members have learned to use criticism as fuel to improve their image, Tisha seems stuck in a loop. The copy and paste queen label also connects to her professional ventures. Whenever Tisha announces a new business or project, there's always a wave of comments comparing her work to Melody's. Some fans accuse her of copying ideas, from branding styles to event setups, rather than carving out her own lane. Now, it's fair to say that both women are in similar industries and naturally overlap, but the issue for viewers isn't the similarity itself, it's how Tisha handles it. Instead of acknowledging inspiration or addressing the comparisons head-on, she often brushes them off or reacts defensively, which only makes people talk more. Transparency would serve her better, but her pride sometimes gets in the way. Social media has amplified all of this. Fans don't just watch the show anymore, they follow every post, every livestream, and every interaction between cast members. So, when Tisha posts something that resembles Melody's content, or when her captions sound familiar, the internet notices immediately. And once that happens, the dragging begins. People create memes, threads, and videos analyzing her every move, calling out similarities, and labeling her as unoriginal. Some of it is unfair and overly harsh, but much of it comes from how Tisha positions herself. If she embraced her individuality more confidently, fans might not draw these constant comparisons. Another layer of this accountability discussion is Tisha's relationship with her mother, Miss Wanda. Love and Marriage, Huntsville viewers know that Miss Wanda is outspoken and fiercely protective of her daughter, often inserting herself into conflicts on Tisha's behalf. While that loyalty is admirable, it sometimes makes things worse. Miss Wanda's involvement in drama has caused several public blow-ups, and Tisha rarely steps in to check her mother's behavior. Instead, she often defends it, saying that Wanda is just being herself. But fans argue that this is yet another example of Tisha failing to take accountability, because even if her mother means well, she represents Tisha's brand on the show. Allowing Wanda's unchecked behavior only reflects back on Tisha, making it harder for people to see her as independent or mature. Even when fans try to give her grace, Tisha seems to do something that reignites the criticism. She'll make a comment during a reunion, post something on Instagram, or take a passive-aggressive shot that people immediately interpret as shade. When called out, instead of clarifying or apologizing, she often insists that people are misinterpreting her. This pattern of dismissing public feedback is one of the biggest reasons why she's seen as lacking accountability. To viewers, it feels like she never learns from the backlash, she just waits for it to die down before doing something similar again. Meanwhile, Melody continues to move in her own lane, focusing on her projects and maintaining a calm, professional demeanor despite constant public scrutiny. That contrast make Tisha's reactions look even more immature by comparison. Fans often say that Melody is a mirror for Tisha, someone who reflects what Tisha wishes she could be, but can't fully embody. The independence, the confidence, and the self-assurance that Melody exudes are traits that Tisha seems to struggle with. And rather than admitting that she's still finding her voice, she hides behind defensiveness. This creates a cycle where every time Melody succeeds, Tisha feels indirectly challenged, even if no one is competing with her. It's also worth noting that Tisha isn't a villain. Despite all the dragging, there are still fans who empathize with her. They see a woman who's been through public humiliation, online criticism, and personal challenges, yet still shows up for her family and her work. These supporters believe that people are too hard on Tisha and that she's simply misunderstood. They argue that not everyone handles confrontation the same way, and Tisha's emotional side is just part of her personality. To them, she's not avoiding accountability, she's just sensitive and protective of her feelings. That perspective is valid too, but it doesn't erase the fact that accountability and growth are necessary for her to win back public respect. Tisha's journey could have been one of redemption by now. If she had openly addressed some of the things people accused her of, like mimicking others or refusing to admit fault, fans might have softened toward her. Viewers love a good comeback story. They respect when a reality star can say, "I made mistakes, I see it now, and I'm learning." That's what makes someone relatable and keeps their fan base strong. But Tisha's tendency to ignore criticism or play the victim only pushes people further away. Instead of taking control of her narrative, she lets it be written for her, often in the worst possible light. It's also interesting to see how Marceau reacts in these situations. Whenever Tisha gets emotional or defensive, Marceau tends to downplay it, making jokes or changing the subject. While some think he's trying to lighten the mood, others feel he doesn't take her feelings seriously. This dynamic leaves Tisha looking like she's always on the defensive, while her husband remains calm and composed. The imbalance between their personalities only reinforces the idea that Tisha lacks independence, that she's still trying to prove herself both in her marriage and in her public image. By now, the audience has seen multiple sides of Tisha. We've seen her be loving, emotional, ambitious, and loyal. But we've also seen her be defensive, inconsistent, and unwilling to admit when she's wrong. That duality makes her one of the most talked about figures on the show. Every new season brings a chance for change, yet every time, the same issues resurface. The label copy and paste queen might seem harsh, but in a way, it reflects the public's frustration with her lack of evolution. They see her repeating patterns emotional. Socially and professionally, instead of growing past them, accountability, at its core, is about self-awareness. It's about being able to say, "I messed up," without making excuses. And that's what Tisha's critics are waiting to see. They don't expect perfection, they just want honesty. If she could drop the defensiveness for once and speak openly about her missteps, it might change everything. Fans would likely rally around her, because people respect vulnerability. But as long as she continues to respond to criticism with denial or comparison, the dragging will continue. People will keep calling her out, and her image will remain stuck in the same cycle. At the end of the day, love and marriage, Huntsville is about growth, relationships, and how couples navigate their personal and professional challenges. Every cast member has had their share of ups and downs, but what separates them in the public eye is how they handle those moments. Melody, Kimmy, and even Martell have all faced harsh criticism, yet each has shown some degree of reflection or change. For Tisha, that process seems to be taking longer, but it's not impossible. She still has time to rewrite her narrative, to move from being seen as defensive and unoriginal to being respected as her own woman. Maybe that's what fans want most, not perfection, not a new storyline, but authenticity. They want to see Tisha stop reacting to what others are doing and start focusing on her own identity. She doesn't need to copy anyone or defend herself in every situation. All she needs to do is own her truth and let her actions speak for her. If she can do that, the dragging might finally stop. But until then, social media will keep reminding her of every moment she dodged accountability, every time she repeated the same patterns, and every instance where she let pride get in the way of progress.